You open your eyes. An endless ocean of black fills your vision. You blink, trying to cast the darkness away, but the veils of blackness still loom over your body. You try to move, but a cold wall, inches away from your face, pins you to the ground. Distressed, you stare into the empty void pressing down on you. Questions start to form in your mind. Are you asleep? Have you gone blind? Are you dead? Seconds become minutes, and minutes become hours. Or so you think. You have completely lost any concept of time. You put your hands against the firm wall on top of you, trying to push yourself from the darkness. You manage to move your body a few inches, your nails clawing at the hard wall and your legs scraping against the cold floor. But the top of your head hits another hard surface, and you are forced to stop. Suddenly, you hear a creaking noise coming from above. Something is on the other side. You can definitely hear a squeaking sound, faint but clear. But as swiftly as it started, the sound stopped. You are once again plunged into complete silence. Then, a dreary thought sneaks into your mind. You are buried. Buried alive. It seems obvious now. The sound you just heard was your coffin groaning under the weight of the dirt above. You are trapped. A feeling of claustrophobia builds up in your heart. A cry of utter despair and hopelessness bursts out of your lungs. "Help!" you shout, but you know it is all in vain. Nobody can hear you. Your eyes wet. A warm tear drops on your cheek. You didn't want it to end this way. You had dreams, family, friends. You had your life to live, but your cruel fate has stripped everything away. You close your eyes. You pray that your torture ends quickly. After an indefinite amount of painful minutes, you begin to drift away, your existence slowly washing off the face of the earth. But then, you hear a sound. At first, you can't determine what it is, but slowly you recognize the familiar whooshing sound of a strong breeze. You must be very close to the surface. New hope is planted in your heart. You start yelling again, hoping to catch the attention of anyone passing near you. Suddenly, you hear a loud thump. The roof of your coffin bends inwards, the cold surface now pressing down on your face. You turn your head sideways to allow for breathing space. Something has fallen on your coffin. Is it dirt about to crush you? No, it can't be. Whatever caused the bend in is still moving. Maybe you aren't buried, but if that isn't the case, then where are you? A shiver runs down your spine. A question you should have thought earlier pops into your mind. How did you end up here? You realize you have no recollection of past events. Where were you, and what were you doing? Your memory is completely blank. But you can't give it more thought as a creaking sound breaks the silence once more. The bend in above you subsides, indicating that the weight on top has shifted. You can very faintly hear a whimpering sound, like someone trying to muffle his crying. Suddenly, a flash of light blinds you. You look at your right. A little crack has appeared in the blackness that surrounds you, allowing a sliver of light to invade your world of darkness. Your heart jumps. This is your escape. You extend your hand, your fingers touching the edge of the crack. You are surprised to find not the hard surface you imagined, but a smooth and soft cloth that parts under your light touch. You push with your fingers the velvet-like material apart, creating a hole big enough for your hand to pass through. With another push, your hand exits your dark prison and enters the world of light. The fresh air cools your skin while you blindly explore your surroundings with your hand. At first, your palm lands on a cold surface that seems to extend beyond your reach. But moving your hand up, You again come in contact with the soft material. You grab onto it, trying to determine how far it goes up. You start climbing up the cloth with your hand, but almost immediately your fingertips reach the edge of the strange fabric. Suddenly, a high-pitched scream pierces your ears. "Mommy! Mommy!" After a few seconds, you hear a door opening. "What is it, sweetie?" "A monster is under my bed."
I've always had trouble sleeping at night. Noises have disturbed me my whole life. I found out years ago that I have hypersensitive hearing, picking up all sorts of background noises. They couldn't fix it, only recommended the obvious techniques to mask the problem. Not that I hadn't tried these already. Earmuffs, listening to music, and even things like meditation. None of it worked. In fact, it seemed to make it worse. It made her more desperate. I hear her most nights. No one else can. Why does she only come to me? There's always the dread of lying there each night in the dark silence, anticipating when she will come and when I will hear her again. She usually likes to wait until I'm drifting to sleep so that I jump back to my senses in fright to the sound of her there. Most of the time it begins with a faint crying. She tells me that she wants to make an end. I know she's getting closer to getting me, and some nights I can even feel her cold breath in my ear. I can sense when she's lying close beside me in the darkness staring at me, and sometimes she whispers things like, "It's only me," right into my ear. She's toying with me like a cat does to a helpless insect before killing it. The thing is, I could never see her, but it slowly felt like she was becoming more real. The doctor later informed me that I suffer from schizophrenia. I have been taking medication for a long time, but it wasn't really working. It just made me feel more helpless. It was difficult for a girl as young as me to deal with this. At least now I could accept that she wasn't real. It was all in my head, and there was nothing real to be afraid of. That was until last night. Last night, her presence felt more real than ever. I could hear her whisper, feel the air on my neck, and even smell her breath. It was all too realistic to handle. I got so scared that I fell back into my old habit of running through the darkness of the house into my mother's bed to sleep beside her where I felt safe. Now that I was older, I knew she was hoping that I had grown out of this phase, although I had only stopped doing it because it made her sad, and I didn't want her to be disappointed in me anymore. She was all I had. If I had the choice, I would be in there beside her every night without fail. I knew my mother had been awoken by me, probably more saddened that I had reverted to old ways when she thought the medication had been helping me. But it wasn't helping. I had just lied all this time to keep her happy and let her sleep in peace. I curled up in bed beside her and began to sob quietly. My mom looked uncomfortable from the noise I had made and began stirring under the sheets, so I whispered into her ear, "It's only me." She sat up abruptly, looking anxious. In the darkness, I saw her reach over for her cell phone and begin to dial a number. I noticed on the screen that she was calling the doctor. "The voices I used to hear," she said. "They're back."
The flames are in full force now. Glass is shattering from the heat generated from this inferno. Even the charred wood is beginning to splinter, unable to withstand the weight of the second and third floors above. You know, it's fires like these that made me want to become a fireman, to see raging death dance across the floors, walls and ceilings is an incredibly beautiful and mystical sight. Don't you agree? With each person I pull out of this burning tomb, I saw more and more flashes of cameras from my fans and admirers. It feels incredible to be loved and honoured like a hero. It's intoxicating even. I cannot get enough of it. And that's why I keep going into the jaws of death to save these irrelevant people. People like you. What they don't know is that I already know how the flame is going to spread. And I know where it's safe and where it's not. And that's why I started the fire there, and over there. Unfortunately for you, I cannot pull you from this beautiful place. You are the last one in the building. Well, besides me. My fans tend to question how dangerous fires like these can be if no one dies within them. And that's why I must leave you here. My people must know how much danger I put myself in. The adoration is more sincere this way. You understand, don't you? Look, here's some advice for you, my friend. Inhale the smoke. Trust me when I say that it's better than the alternative. Okay then. See you after the cinders die out.
Annabel Lee by Edgar Allan Poe. It was many and many a year ago, in a kingdom by the sea, that a maiden there lived whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. I was a child, and she was a child, in this kingdom by the sea. But we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee, with a love that the winged seraphs in heaven coveted her and me. And this was the reason that, long ago, in this kingdom by the sea, a wind blew out of a cloud, chilling my beautiful Annabel Lee, so that her high-born kinsman came and bore her away from me, to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. The angels, not half so happy in heaven, went envying her and me. Yes, that was the reason, as all men know in this kingdom by the sea, that a wind came out of a cloud by night, chilling and killing my Annabel Lee. But our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we, of many far wiser than we, and neither the angels in heaven above nor the demons down under the sea can ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee, and the stars never rise but I feel her bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so, all the night tide, I lie down by the side of my darling, my life and my bride, in her sepulchre there by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea.
There was a very famous author named David who had written quite a few best-selling horror novels. All of the literature critics praised his talent for plot twists and surprise endings. He received a large amount of fan mail every day, and some budding authors even sent him manuscripts in the hopes that he would help them get their work published. While David took pleasure in responding to letters from his fans, he took even more pleasure in stealing the ideas of amateur writers. If he came across a manuscript with a great idea for a scary story, he would use it in one of his own books and deny the author any credit. Then, in order to hide his theft, he pulled some strings with his friends in the publishing industry to make sure that the original author never got anything published in the future. One day, David received a new manuscript in the mail. It was bound in a beautiful hardcover book. He read the first chapter and felt that he knew how the story would end. As he continued reading, he became more and more certain that he could guess the twist ending. It was growing late, but he wanted to finish reading the manuscript to see whether or not he was right. When David came to the final chapter, he realised the last few pages of the book were stuck together. Anxious to read further, he pulled the pages apart. He felt increasingly tired, but he still kept reading. Finally, he came to the end of the book. It was exactly the twist ending he had anticipated. The husband had hanged himself, just as his wife was committing suicide in the next room. David made a mental note to steal the idea and use it in his next story. Just then, he noticed that, after the words, "the end," there was a little handwritten comment from the author. It read, "I already know that you are planning to steal the ideas in this story. I know, because you did the exact same thing to me the last time I sent you a manuscript. You published it under your own name and didn't give me any credit. You ripped me off, blacklisted me in the industry. Nobody will accept my novels anymore, and I will never again be able to publish anything I write. You have ruined my life, and now I'm going to have my revenge." You had to pull apart the back pages in order to read this, didn't you? Well, those pages contained a poison, arsenic, to be precise. Are you feeling tired? That's normal. It's one of the symptoms of arsenic poisoning. Soon, your heartbeat will get slower and slower until it eventually stops permanently. Don't bother trying to call an ambulance. You will be dead before they arrive. You've already been exposed for too long. Goodbye, David. Some twist endings can be very hard to predict.
In rural southern Illinois, a toy company began selling realistic baby dolls to expectant mothers. But apparently, after the mother had a child, the toy baby would start crying. Eventually, the rocking motion advertised to calm it down wouldn't work, and you couldn't get it to stop without shaking it. Eventually, when it started crying, the parent would have to beat it, and the beatings and thrashings would have to get harder and harder to get it to be quiet. The only thing that seemed to shut the baby doll up permanently was to bash its head against the wall to destroy whatever mechanism triggered the crying. On more than one occasion, though, neighbours called the authorities to report child abuse, and when the police arrived, they found the bloody remains of infants smeared across the walls and floor. In most cases, the mother couldn't understand why the police were there. She just got rid of the stupid doll as she rocked a baby-shaped bundle in her arms.
The dirt path that winds down the valley outside his cabin would make him question the need to go to school. In fact, going into town seemed pointless. It was good exercise, and it was a beautiful view, but there was simply nothing to be accomplished with going to school. Still, his father made him carry out the deed, along with many other chores, such as preparing the wood and lamp oil, melting the ink, and tending to the garden. His father lived old-fashioned, and the son preferred it that way. On the dirt path, there were possibly unknown dangers on the walk to school, wildlife, pedophiles, muggers, and murderers. But he carried no weapons or defenses while his father hunted up further up in the mountains. It never really had worried him, but he always had an escape route on any part of the trail, and he always had his eye out. But even with all this knowledge and planning, nothing could have prepared him for what was out there. What he saw. What happened. It all started several months ago when he was walking home, and on this particular day, he felt suspicious, so he stayed sharp. While he was walking, he saw things. They were mostly hidden by the trees, but he could make out that they were humanoid. They were twisted into wrong shapes and angles. They were white, but looked stained with gray ash. As he walked past, they would seemingly watch him, but they didn't have any eyes. Went far enough ahead, they would soon follow. He got home safely, but his anxiety was intense, and he felt lightheaded. When he looked out the window, he caught a glimpse of them, fading back into the foliage. His dad would refuse to believe him, despite his worry over the monsters. He didn't like the word, but somehow it was appropriate here. As the days went by, he stopped going outside. He didn't tend to the herbs and potatoes. He only left the cabin to go to and from school. He got better looks at them as I followed his routine. They were tall and twisted, as though their skin didn't fit right. One was crossing the street in front of him, a little ways up the path. They have really small feet with claws. They had hands that were different every time he saw them. Sometimes infant hands, spikes, long and thin hands, bloody. He stopped sleeping at night. He ate less. He was skinny and sick, and his eyes grew lifeless and haunted. He was losing his perception of reality. He was not scared, angry, or sad. He was not feeling. He had long forgotten who he used to be. He is now just an empty skin sack that walks and hardly talks. He felt like he was being watched at all times. That is, until yesterday. He was tripping uphill on his path home, stopping frequently to throw up. He never did. He just had the feeling he had to. When he heard the dirt compress about 20 paces behind him, just for the fun of it, he shuffled his feet and turned around. There was a man with a scraggly beard. He had dirty clothes and glasses. His hands were shaky and holding a long knife, licking it slowly with his cancer-ridden tongue. The boy instantly came back. He looked around for one of his old paths he had scoped out. He was too surprised to make a run for it. The stranger grew closer and spoke in a monotony, raspy voice. "Don't scream. Don't you dare. Take off your pack." He pointed with the knife to the boy's feet. The child started to cry and dropped his pack in the mud. The stranger kicked it off into the bushes. He took the moment to rub his crotch. "You won't need that where you're going." He started to reach for the boy. Suddenly, there was a thunder, like a battle horn, as dirty things came out of the woods, and the man was swooped up in their hands that had changed into mouths, full of teeth. The stranger's screams were drowned out into the ripping and tearing as 4 of the things ripped him into chunks and ate him through their hands. When they had finished, they had stood erect and helped the child off the ground and dressed him with their infant hands. They disappeared back into the day, leaving nothing behind but his knife. Not even blood was there. His clothes were clean, and so was his bag. He heard the battle horn again, and more screaming began drowned into the distance. That day, he had realized that the things that had been stalking him were not monsters. That day, they protected him from a real monster.
Real monsters are plain and will not hide. They will not stop. They are scary. He didn't know what to call them. Every hero had a name. Something inside told him they were called the Hollows.
The cashier swipes my items across the scanner as I stare at the floor. I find it easiest to get through my anxiety by avoiding eye contact with other people. That's why I only go shopping at night, fewer people to avoid. "Did you find everything okay?" she asked casually. I mumbled to the floor. Her voice sounds nice, pleasant. Curiosity wins over and I glance up. The cashier's head is completely caved in on one side, blood streaming out of her eye and her ear on the right. Probably a car accident. I snap my gaze back down towards the floor and I feel vomit at the back of my throat. After I pay, she gives back my change in a hand that's so mangled I'm surprised it could hold anything at all. Thanking her, I grab my bags and turn towards the exit. Immediately I see a man looking through magazines at the storefront. The skin on his face and his hands is the consistency of a hot dog that fell into a campfire. The burn victim. I turn the other way and I see a woman with a purple bruise surrounding her neck, her eyes bugged out and bloodshot. Death by hanging. I rush out of the door as fast as I can. In my car, I finally catch my breath as I lean my forehead on the steering wheel. Eventually, I look up and see my familiar reflection in the rearview mirror. My head is blown open in the back. Gunshot victim. Why did I ever wish for the power to see how people die?
Many a sailor, no matter how brave and fearless, knows well how unpredictable and deadly the sea can be. Before every setting of the sails, a prayer goes throughout the crew, praying to God for the safety of their voyage. A wise man knows that prayers are not always answered, and many a man has traveled to the briny depths of the sea, never to be seen again. Some men say this, though. They have managed to cheat death in those moments with a ritual that may not be worth living for later. The ritual is fairly simple, but not one that one wants to use unless they are in mortal peril and know it. Providing that they are not sinking fast enough in the water to choke out their words, a man must repeat the following phrase: "Devil, take my soul across the Styx, for God has abandoned me," 3 times at the top of his lungs. If he truly puts himself and his soul into it, the ferryman shall come. No matter how much the waves rage and toss, his ship shall not be turned, nor shall he capsize. The man shall feel his wrist grabbed and be pulled into the boat. From there, he will not feel the waves rocking him. He will feel no hunger, no thirst, nor fatigue. Only the breath in his lungs and the wind blows softly across his wet face. It is important that the man does not look up into his eyes. This is because calling him out is a trick. You see, the ferryman will not take a soul across the Styx without payment. He will hear him speak asking for payment. When he asks, he must proclaim that he is without payment and needs to go get it from home. The ferryman will then begin to row the sailor's home shore. The sailor cannot look at him the entire way. Even if it takes 3 days and 3 nights, it will not matter. This is because if the ferryman looks into your eyes, he will know you are lying and return you to the waters where you will meet your original fate. When you finally reach the shore, the sailor must thank him and tell him he will return shortly. The sailor can never return to sea after this. The ferryman will never come back to shore to collect, only be there by the water, awaiting his payment. If a sailor ever does set foot on a boat again, he and all of the men on it shall perish in a violent and destructive manner. Be warned though, one cannot outrun the ferryman forever. I know a man in his last few years and fears closing his eyes at night, lest he pass from this world and his soul meet the ferryman once more. He feels the grip around his wrist tighter and tighter at night with each dream when he finally falls into sleep. And he sees a monstrous face looking at him, enraged. No one truly cheats the ferryman. He is simply far more patient than most realize.